So I thought I'd go over one of my build plans for one of my custom blasters. Obviously I do a lot of 3D printing, so we'll talk about that a little bit. I've had some people ask about the paints that I use again, so we'll talk about that. But what I'm trying to do now is, now that I have a better printer, I feel like I have more experience, I can really customize these pieces. So they're not necessarily original pieces, but I guess there'd be what you'd call like heavily remixed pieces based off of what I can find on like Thingiverse and Cults. And that's where I'm getting all these files from that I start with, and then I do a lot of customizing from there. So what I mean by that, so for the actual handguard here, you can see the handguard. So this handguard actually is, originally intended for like an M4, an HK, or an AR airsoft blaster. And it's intended for the kind that actually have the threads on the receiver so you can thread it on. So most of these M4A1s that we have don't have that threaded part, right? They've got this. Now there are some HK416s that do. Obviously you get into the higher end blasters, the GEN9s even, they have the threaded attachment. But since I have so many of these, I need to do it a different way. So for this blaster, what I did is I took the handguard, and then it had full rails on all sides. I didn't want that, so I was able to, slice those off, right? And then I added the piece that allows you to go ahead and attach it directly to this, just like a factory one would, right? So that'll just attach on there just like it's supposed to. Now I do want rails on the side, but I didn't want, like I said, full rails. So I did a couple things. First, I want to make sure that the top rail of the receiver lines up with the rail on the handguard. So I had to adjust the height of that one in the back. And then I wanted this one up front here, to kind of angle out. Like you see it's angling out to kind of mimic the actual handguard. So I got that done there. I did print them all in one piece like this for a couple reasons, because obviously these are going to be painted a separate color, the whole rail, so that way it gives you that whole color all the way throughout. And printing a long base like this not only lets you do like the cool color stripe that's going to go the whole way, is it ensures your rails are straight, right? So that's definitely helpful. Now on the sides, I wanted to go with a rail that angles this way, because down here, we don't jut out at all. So this one's going to angle down like you see right there. And then I continued these kind of pieces on there, right? So I've got the different ones, one for each side. And then the bottom rail is going to also jut out to go along with this piece. Now, as I was doing this and making the inner stabilizers, which I do, I'll show you. So there's like a inner round tube in here, and then a stabilizer piece. And so this piece comes out, right? But this is going to be very stable because it fits nice and flush and tight in here. And then this piece is kind of the cap end. And then I took, and again, took this, chopped that piece off, resized it so that you get kind of that effect there, right, where we've got the same piece mimicked in here. And of course this can be a different color than this, so that's going to kind of set that off and look pretty cool. This end is just taped. That's where the actual threaded piece is going to get pushed on, right? So this, again, I had to change the size on it so that it fits perfectly on my outer barrel, and that'll just push in there, that'll fit on there perfectly. And that's what I've done there. So I've just got the threads taped up on this because I don't want to paint the threads, and just the end of that because it's already a tight fit. And if I paint it, then it'll end up having to deal with all that. I've got a recessed, fake suppressor that's going to actually, this is going to go in here and screw in, and this is basically going to fit right up against this, right? So there should be enough room. I've measured it out, but it's basically just going to be enough to cover this part of, the threaded piece, right? That's the plan, at least. If it is slightly too big, then I'll have to go back to the drawing board and make one a little smaller. Sometimes it is easiest to wait until you got that all put together to get the exact measurements, but I don't know, I felt like I wanted to go ahead and get that done. This blaster, this is a GEN8. It does have the priming function, so I wanted to utilize just a different charging handle because I thought this was cool, and I had this one already printed. So all I had to do was print a special piece that's going to this is going to get glued in here really good, because that's actually what pushes the top button here that does the charging, right? So that's what actually pushes that when you pull back on the charging handle. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be so powerful that it's going to make the port ejection door come off, but I've had that happen before. And you know, the port ejection door is kind of cool, but I thought it would be nice to go ahead and put like a piece like this here. So this is just a piece that's made. It's intended to just fill your port ejection. And again, you can go with a different color on it. So it allows you to do a different color, and it just kind of, you know, customizes it, makes it look cool in my eyes. So that'll be that'll be glued in there, right? So that's not going to be removable. You're not going to have the little door that flips. Did a different mag release just because, you know, why not? But it's, you know, not a huge change, but just something different to add on there. When it comes to paints, these are a couple primers that I use for 3D printed stuff, right? The primer filler is good. If you do have anything that you need to get, any little grooves and stuff you need to deal with. For paint on this one, I'm going to use this color. It's called an Evening Navy. I like the ultra matte versions of these Rust-Oleum paints. And then I'm also going to use this metallic finish, dark metal, because I think it looks really cool. So those two are going to tie together. Probably be a little black left in too, because I don't really like painting the grips. Anywhere that's heavily touched, you know, you are going to end up with some, you know, issues with that paint probably in the long run. So usually I don't paint the grips. Going to switch to metal inner barrel. And going to switch to an M95 spring here, which is caught on one of the mag terminals, so I'm not going to hold that up. For stocks, I was hoping to maybe use this one, but then I felt it was too bulky. Thought about this one. I feel like it's too small. And the CQB one doesn't really make sense, so I'm actually printing a new one that's going to tie in a lot of these kind of, you know, angles here like this. So that's kind of the build plan. Oh, this, of course, just a little rail riser for the top of the receiver. And I do always like to just kind of make a rail riser that connects from the top of the receiver at least a little bit onto the handguard, just for stability purposes. So this will kind of be set a little bit forward there so that it can attach to both the receiver and the top of the handguard, just to give it added stability. So that's a build plan, kind of shows you everything that goes into it. And I think it's going to turn out really good. I'm trying to make these as perfect as possible now that I have a good printer and I have the ability to do so. And I'm just kind of trying to take my time even more. I mean, I always was in the past, but with a slower printer, you just kind of, I don't know, it's just not the same. Like, I can do a lot of prototyping, making pieces. If they don't work out, then I go make a new piece and it doesn't take near as long. So that's cool. All right, so check back. Of course, I'll post it when it's completely finished. I'll kind of go over what I did. There might be some changes that are made during the process. That typically happens. And hopefully we get some great performance out of the actual Gen 8 as well. And it turns out really nice. So check back for those videos and let me know what you guys think. Comments or questions, post them below. Of course, like, subscribe, share my channel with your friends, and participate in the monthly giveaways. Thanks.